The proximity alarms screamed through the bridge of the HFY as reality itself seemed to buckle and tear. Commander Thaddeus Vostok gripped the armrests of his command chair, his knuckles white as the ship's hull groaned against forces that shouldn't exist in normal space. Through the view screen, the stars weren't where they should be, they swirled in impossible patterns, bleeding red and blue as if the universe itself was being stretched like taffy. Gravitational anomaly detected. Lieutenant Kezia Okonkwo shouted from her station, her fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered with data streams. Something's tearing through subspace, Commander. It's massive. Vostok's jaw clenched. They were supposed to be on a routine patrol of the Kepler 442 system, checking on the mining colonies that humanity had established in the Outer Rim. The HFY, one of Earth's newest shift-capable destroyers, had been built for exploration and defense, not for whatever nightmare was unfolding before them. The space in front of them rippled like water, and then it happened. A ship materialized from the quantum foam, its hull gleaming with an ethereal blue luminescence that hurt to look at directly. The vessel was sleek, predatory, with sweeping curves that defied conventional ship design. Along its flanks, strange symbols pulsed with inner light, and Vostok felt his blood run cold as the ship's transponder signal appeared on their screens. Amaterasu, whispered Ensign Dmitry Volkonsky from the communications station, his voice barely audible over the alarms. Commander, that's the Amaterasu. She went missing 7 years ago during the Proxima event. The bridge fell silent except for the electronic wailing of their instruments. Every spacer knew the story of the Amaterasu, Earth's first experimental Blueshift drive vessel, lost with all hands during what should have been a routine test of their revolutionary propulsion system. Captain Yuki Nakamura and her crew of 73 had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only gravitational echoes and unanswered questions. That's impossible, Chief Engineer Ravi Krishnamurti said, his voice tight with disbelief. The Amaterasu was declared destroyed. The quantum signatures alone should have. I know what should have happened, Vostok cut him off, rising from his chair. But that's definitely her profile. Okonkwo, what are your sensors telling you? The lieutenant's dark skin had paled as she processed the incoming data. Sir, the Amaterasu is wrong. Her mass readings are fluctuating wildly. One moment she registers as standard displacement, the next she's showing the gravitational signature of a small moon. And her whole temperature. She paused, double-checking her readings. It's approaching absolute zero in some sections while others are burning at stellar temperatures. Hail them, Vostok ordered, though something in his gut told him it was futile. All frequencies. Volkonsky worked his station with practiced efficiency, cycling through every communication protocol in their database. This is the Solar Coalition Destroyer White to the vessel identifying as Amaterasu. Please respond. Captain Nakamura, if you can hear this. The response came not through their comm systems but directly into their minds. Every person on the bridge gasped as words formed in their consciousness, cold and alien despite being in perfect English. You should not have come here. The boundary was not meant to be crossed twice. Dr. Ixchel Reyes, the ship's xenobiologist, stumbled forward from her observation post. Commander, I'm detecting massive chronoton emissions from the Amaterasu. Whatever happened to them, they've been exposed to temporal distortions on a scale we've never seen before. The Amaterasu began to move, its motion fluid and wrong, as if it wasn't quite bound by the same physics as everything else. The HFY's instruments went haywire as space-time itself seemed to bend around the ghost ship. They're charging weapons. Okonkwo shouted. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Vostok's training kicked in, overriding the primal fear that threatened to paralyze him. Battle stations. All hands, this is not a drill. Prep the shift drive for emergency jump. Krishnamurti, I need options. The engineer's fingers flew across his console. Our shift drive operates on completely different principles than their Blueshift technology. If we can modulate our quantum field to create an inverse harmonic. English, Ravi. We might be able to disrupt whatever's keeping them anchored to our reality. Through the chaos, Navigator Zara Okafor spoke up from her station, her voice cutting through the noise with eerie calm. "Commander, I'm detecting something else. The Amaterasu isn't alone. There are things clinging to her hull. Signatures that don't match any known matter or energy patterns." As if in response to her words, the view screen flickered, showing a magnified image of the Amaterasu's hull. What they saw defied description, writhing shadows that seemed to exist between dimensions, feeding on the ship's unnatural energies. And in the bridge windows of the ghost ship, faces pressed against the transparent aluminum, human faces twisted in expressions of endless horror. The battle for reality itself was about to begin. The first salvo from the Amaterasu wasn't a conventional weapon, it was a wave of distorted spacetime that slammed into the SC White like a tsunami of warped reality. Vostok felt his vision fragment as past, present, and future collided in his perception. For a terrifying moment, he saw himself as a child on Mars colony, as an old man dying in a bed he'd never seen, and as he was now, all simultaneously. Temporal shields holding at 60%. Okonkwo managed to report, though blood trickled from her nose. The SC White's experimental defenses, designed to protect against the exotic effects of shift travel, were the only thing keeping them from being torn apart at the quantum level. "Return fire," Vostok ordered, shaking off the disorientation. "Target their engine signatures." The White's plasma cannons erupted in brilliant lances of superheated matter, but the beams bent impossibly around the Amaterasu, as if space itself was protecting the ghost ship. Where the plasma did connect, it simply disappeared, absorbed into the writhing shadows that coated the vessel's hull. "No effect," Weapons Officer Stellan Lindqvist reported, his Swedish accent thickening with stress. "Commander, our weapons can't penetrate whatever field they're generating." Dr. Reyes had connected herself to the ship's sensor array, her neural implants glowing as she processed data at superhuman speeds. "Those aren't shields in any conventional sense," she said, her voice distant and analytical. "The Amaterasu exists in a state of quantum superposition, it's simultaneously here and not here, real and unreal. We're fighting a ship that's become unstuck from our reality." Another wave of distortion hit them, and this time the effects were more severe. Ensign Volkonsky aged 20 years in an instant before reverting to normal, gasping in terror. In the corner of the bridge, a console flickered between existing and not existing, its operator, Lieutenant Gene Watanabe, phasing in and out of visibility. "We can't take many more hits like that," Krishnamurti warned. "Our shift drive is resonating with their Blueshift emissions. If the harmonic frequency matches, we'll suffer the same fate they did," Vostok finished grimly. He turned to Okafor. "Navigation, plot an escape vector." "We need to." "Sir." Okonkwo interrupted. "I'm picking up life signs from the Amaterasu. Human life signs. They're still alive in there." The bridge fell silent. After 7 years lost in whatever hellscape existed between dimensions, the crew of the Amaterasu still lived. The faces pressed against the windows weren't recordings or echoes, they were real people, trapped in an endless nightmare. "How is that possible?" Volkonsky whispered. "Time moves differently in the spaces between," Dr. Reyes explained, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific fascination and human horror. "For them, it might have been days, or centuries, or both simultaneously. They're caught in a temporal loop, dying and living over and over again." The moral weight of the situation crashed down on Vostok. These weren't enemies, they were fellow humans, Earth's brave explorers who had paid the ultimate price for pushing the boundaries of physics. But whatever had returned wearing the Amaterasu's shape was a threat to reality itself. "Commander," a new voice spoke up. It was Chaplain Eamon O'Sullivan, the ship's psychological support specialist, who rarely spoke during combat situations. "I've been monitoring the psychic emanations from the Amaterasu. The crew, they're not in control. Something else is piloting that ship, using their suffering as fuel." As if in response to his words, the mental communication returned, stronger this time. But now Vostok could hear the undertones, human voices screaming in harmony with the alien intelligence that had claimed them. Join us in the space between spaces. Your shift drive sings the same song as ours. Let us show you the truth that lies beyond the veil of reality. Like hell, Vostok growled. He turned to his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes but also the determination. They were humans, descendants of a species that had clawed its way from the mud to the stars through sheer stubborn will. They wouldn't go down without a fight. Krishnamurti, you said something about inverse harmonics. Can you turn our shift drive into a weapon? The engineer's eyes lit up with dangerous inspiration. It's never been done before, but theoretically, if we invert our quantum field and project it outward instead of using it for travel, it could destabilize their connection to our reality. Dr. Reyes finished, catching on. But Commander, the energy requirements would be enormous. We'd have to channel our entire power core through the shift drive. One miscalculation and we join them in whatever hell they're trapped in, Vostok said. I'm aware of the risks. But if we don't stop them here, they'll continue to Earth. Can you imagine what would happen if they reached a populated system? The crew exchanged glances, understanding passing between them without words. They all knew what needed to be done. All hands, Vostok announced over the ship-wide comm, prepare for emergency shift drive modification. We're going to send our lost brothers and sisters home, one way or another. The Amaterasu sensed their intentions. The ghost ship's blue radiance intensified, and space around them began to fracture like broken glass. The real battle was about to begin, and the stakes were nothing less than the nature of reality itself. The modification of the shift drive began in earnest as the Amaterasu circled them like a predator sizing up its prey. In the engineering bay, Krishnamurti and his team worked with desperate efficiency, reconfiguring systems that were never meant to be used as weapons. Sparks flew from overloaded conduits as they pushed the technology beyond its design limits. On the bridge, Vostok watched the ghost ship's movements with growing unease. The Amaterasu wasn't attacking anymore, it was waiting, as if curious about what they were attempting. The shadows clinging to its hull writhed with increased agitation, and through the magnified view, he could see the faces in the windows moving, their mouths forming words he couldn't hear but somehow understood. Help us. Commander, Lieutenant Okonkwo said quietly, I'm detecting communication attempts from individual crew members aboard the Amaterasu. They're trying to send us their personal logs. Put them through, audio only, Vostok ordered, though part of him dreaded what they might hear. The bridge speakers crackled to life, and a woman's voice emerged, distorted by interference and something else, the weight of temporal displacement. This is Captain Yuki Nakamura of the ESS Amaterasu. If anyone receives this message, know that we are lost between the walls of reality. The Blueshift drive worked too well. We pierced the veil and found. The voice dissolved into static, replaced by another, younger and filled with tears. Mom, Dad, it's Koji. I don't know if this will reach you, but I want you to know I love you. Time doesn't work right here. I've lived 1,000 years and died 1,000 times. The things that live in the void, they whisper such beautiful lies. They promise to end the pain if we just let them through. Captain Nakamura won't let us, but I don't know how much longer. Vostok cut the transmission, his jaw clenched. Around him, his bridge crew sat in stunned silence, the human cost of their enemy's existence now horrifically clear. Sir, Dr. Reyes spoke up, her voice carefully controlled, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from those entities attached to the Amaterasu. They're not from our universe. They exist in the spaces between realities, feeding on consciousness and suffering. The Amaterasu's crew stumbled into their domain, and now they're using the ship as an anchor to pull themselves into our reality. How long until the drive modifications are complete? Vostok asked. 15 minutes if we're lucky, Okafor responded, monitoring the engineering feeds. But Commander, the Amaterasu is moving into an attack position. I don't think those things controlling it plan to give us that time. She was right. The ghost ship's luminescence suddenly intensified, and the space around it began to ripple with increasing violence. But this time, something else happened. Smaller objects began separating from the Amaterasu's hull, escape pods, their surfaces covered in the same writhing shadows. Multiple contacts. Lindqvist shouted. 12, no, 18 pods launching from the Amaterasu. They're on intercept courses. Point defense systems, target those pods. Vostok ordered, but he already knew it would be difficult. The pods moved with the same reality-bending properties as their mother ship, phasing in and out of normal space. The SC White's railguns opened fire, sending streams of magnetically accelerated tungsten rounds toward the approaching pods. Some shots connected, causing pods to explode in bursts of otherworldly light. But others passed harmlessly through their targets, as if firing at ghosts. Pods will reach us in 3 minutes, Okonkwo reported. I'm detecting life signs in each one, but... Commander, the readings are all wrong. Human DNA mixed with something else. Chaplain O'Sullivan, who had been monitoring the psychic emanations, suddenly gasped. They're sending their crew to us. Those poor souls, they've been transformed into living weapons. The entities are using their bodies as vessels. Security teams to all airlocks, Vostok commanded. Prepare to repel boarders. Non-lethal weapons only if possible, these are still our people. But even as he gave the order, he wondered if there was anything left of the original crew to save. The logs they'd heard suggested minds pushed beyond the breaking point, souls trapped in an endless cycle of death and rebirth. Commander. Krishnamurti's voice crackled over the comm from engineering. We've hit a snag. The shift drive's quantum matrix is destabilizing faster than anticipated. If we activate it now, there's a 70% chance of catastrophic failure. Define catastrophic, Vostok said, though he suspected he knew the answer. Best case? We blow out our entire power grid and drift helpless. Worst case? We create a quantum cascade that tears open a permanent rift between dimensions. The first of the pods slammed into the White's hull, somehow phasing through their shields. Vostok felt the impact reverberate through the deck plating. On the security feeds, he watched as Marines take position outside the affected airlock, weapons raised. The airlock door began to glow with an inner light, metal warping as something on the other side forced its way through. When it finally burst open, what emerged had once been human but was now something far worse. The figure wore the tattered remains of an Amaterasu uniform, but its body flickered between states of matter, sometimes solid, sometimes gaseous, always wrong. Its eyes held the depth of eternity and the madness that came with it. Please, it whispered, its voice echoing across dimensions, let us in. Let us share the truth we've learned. Death is not the end. Nothing ends. Everything continues forever and ever and ever. The Marines opened fire, their stunner blasts seeming to cause the creature pain but not stopping it. It moved forward with jerky, unnatural movements, reaching out with hands that phased between flesh and shadow. More pods were impacting now. The SC White shuddered under the assault, and Vostok knew they were running out of time and options. The boarding assault intensified as more transformed crew members from the Amaterasu breached the SC White's hull. Security Chief Tomas Reyes, no relation to the xenobiologist, coordinated the defense from the ship's tactical center, his teams spread thin across multiple breach points. Delta Team, fall back to Junction 7. They're phasing through the bulkheads. His voice carried over the combat channel as helmet cameras showed Marines firing desperately at enemies that existed only partially in their reality. On the bridge, Vostok watched the tactical display with growing desperation. Red dots representing borders spread through his ship like an infection, while his blue dots fell back or, worse, winked out entirely. The screams over the comm told their own story. When the transformed Amaterasu crew touched someone, they didn't just kill them. They pulled them partially into the void between dimensions, leaving them trapped between life and death. Krishnamurti, I need that drive modification now. Vostok barked into the comm. Working as fast as we can, Commander. But if we rush this... If we don't rush this, we'll all be joining the Amaterasu in whatever hell they've been trapped in for 7 years. Dr. Ixchel Reyes had abandoned her station to work directly with the ship's AI, her neural implants glowing as she processed data at inhuman speeds. Commander, I'm detecting a pattern in the border's movements. They're not trying to take the ship, they're heading for specific locations. Engineering, the shift drive core, and the bridge. As if summoned by her words, the bridge's main door began to glow with eldritch light. The metal started to warp and bubble as something forced its way through from the other side. All bridge personnel, prepare for close combat. Vostok drew his sidearm, knowing how futile the gesture was. Around him, his bridge crew did the same, though Okonkwo never left her station, continuing to coordinate the ship's failing defenses. The door exploded inward, and through the breach stepped a figure that made Vostok's breath catch. It was Captain Yuki Nakamura herself, or what remained of her. Her uniform was pristine, as if freshly pressed, but her body flickered between youth and old age, between life and death. Her eyes held the weight of eternity, and when she spoke, her voice carried the harmonics of the void. "Commander Vostok," she said, and her knowing smile was the most terrifying thing he'd ever seen. "I've waited so long to meet you. In the spaces between seconds, I've seen every possible future, every choice you might make. They all end the same way." Captain Nakamura, Vostok kept his weapon trained on her, though he knew it was useless. "Fight this. You're still human. You're still one of us." Her laugh was like breaking glass. "Human? Oh, Commander, humanity is such a limited concept. We've transcended flesh, transcended time itself. The entity showed us the truth, that reality is just one note in an infinite symphony. Why cling to this single, discordant tone when you could hear the entire composition?" Behind her, more figures emerged. Her bridge crew, all bearing the same terrible transformation. They spread out, not attacking but simply standing, waiting. "The modification is ready." Krishnamurti's voice burst over the comm. "But Commander, we'll need to lower our shields to project the inverse field. We'll be completely vulnerable." Nakamura tilted her head, hearing the communication despite it being on a secure channel. "Ah, the inverse harmonic gambit. Clever. We tried something similar, when we first realized what was happening to us. It didn't work. Nothing works. There is no escape from eternity." "Maybe not," Vostok said, making his decision. "But we're going to try anyway. It's what humans do, we fight impossible odds. It's what makes us who we are." He turned to Okonkwo. "Lower the shields. Activate the modified shift drive." "Sir, the Amaterasu is powering up for a massive attack. Without shields." "Do it." The SCY's protective barriers flickered and died. Immediately, the ship shuddered as exotic energies from the Amaterasu washed over them. But at the same time, their own shift drive began to sing a different song, an inverted frequency that pushed against the boundaries of reality rather than piercing them. Nakamura's expression changed, the serene confidence cracking. "No. You don't understand what you're doing. If you destabilize our connection, you won't send us back, you'll scatter us across every possible reality. We'll die infinite deaths across infinite universes." "I'm sorry," Vostok said, and meant it. "But I can't let you bring those things into our reality. I can't let you do to others what was done to you." The inverse field expanded outward from the SCY, a sphere of negated reality that pushed against the wrongness of the Amaterasu's existence. Where it touched the transformed crew members, they screamed, not in pain, but in recognition of what they had lost. For a moment, Nakamura's eyes cleared. The madness receded, replaced by the woman she had been. "Thank you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Please, remember us as we were, not as what we became." Then the field reached full power, and reality itself began to scream. The inverse harmonic field erupted from the SCY in a wave of impossible mathematics, reality folding in on itself as two contradictory states of existence tried to occupy the same space. Where the field touched the transformed Amaterasu crew, they began to discorporate, their forms unraveling like threads pulled from a cosmic tapestry. Captain Nakamura stood at the center of the bridge as her body began to fade, but her eyes remained locked on Vostok's. In those final moments, he saw not the eldritch horror she had become, but the brilliant explorer who had dared to push the boundaries of human achievement. The entities, she gasped, her voice becoming distant as layers of reality peeled away from her. They're not malevolent. They're just hungry. So terribly hungry. They've existed in the void since before time began, feeding on the echoes of thoughts that never were. We were the first real thing they'd encountered in eons. Around the ship, the boarding parties were suffering the same fate. Security Chief Reyes reported in, his voice shaken, "The borders are dissolving, sir. But I'm getting strange readings. Energy signatures that don't match anything in our database." Dr. Ixchel Reyes's neural implants were burning so brightly they cast shadows on the bridge. "Commander, the entities are trying to maintain their foothold in our reality. They're abandoning their human hosts and attempting to directly interface with our dimension. If they succeed..." She didn't need to finish. On the view screen, the Amaterasu was writhing like a living thing, its hull buckling and reforming as the shadows that had clung to it for 7 years fought against the inverse field. The ship's blue radiance flickered between colors that had no names, wavelengths that human eyes were never meant to perceive. "Krishnamurti, how long can we maintain the field?" Vostok demanded. 2 minutes, maybe 3, came the strained reply. "The power core is redlining. Any longer and we'll have a breach." Through the chaos, Chaplain O'Sullivan approached what remained of Captain Nakamura. The Japanese officer was barely visible now, existing more as a suggestion of a person than actual matter. He knelt beside her, offering what comfort he could to someone caught between existence and oblivion. "Tell me," he said gently, "what happened out there? What did you find in the space between spaces?" Nakamura's voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We found the source of dark matter, Chaplain. It's not matter at all, it's the weight of possibilities that never came to pass, the mass of choices unmade. The entities exist in that space, in the gap between what is and what might have been. Our Blueshift drive didn't just move us faster than light, it moved us sideways through probability itself." The implications were staggering. Humanity had accidentally discovered not just a new form of propulsion, but a way to access alternate realities, and the hungry things that dwelt between them. "Can they be stopped?" Vostok asked. "Is there a way to seal the breach?" "The inverse field is working," Nakamura replied, her form now little more than a shimmer in the air. "But it's not enough. You need to destroy the Amaterasu. As long as our ship exists, it serves as an anchor point. The entities can use it to claw their way back into reality. But you and your crew are already dead," she finished. "We died the moment we made the shift 7 years ago. What you see now are just echoes, shadows puppeted by things that don't understand what it means to be alive. Please, Commander. End this. Let us finally rest." Vostok turned to his weapons officer. "Lindqvist, target the Amaterasu. Everything we have." "Sir, with our shields down. I know the risks." "Do it." The SC White's weapons systems came online, plasma cannons and railguns swiveling to target the ghost ship. But even as they prepared to fire, the Amaterasu struck first. The attack wasn't physical, it was an assault on the very concept of the SC White's existence. The ship's hull began to phase in and out of reality, sections disappearing entirely before snapping back into place. Crew members screamed as they found themselves briefly existing in multiple states simultaneously. Temporal shields failing. Akonko shouted. Hull integrity at 60% and falling. Return fire. All weapons. The SC White unleashed its arsenal, beams of superheated plasma and streams of kinetic rounds converging on the Amaterasu. This time, with the inverse field disrupting the ghost ship's defenses, the weapons found their mark. The Amaterasu's hull buckled and burned, shadows screaming as they were torn from their anchor. But the ghost ship wasn't going down without a fight. Its final attack was a wave of pure entropy, a blast of unbeing that washed over the SC White. Systems failed, lights flickered, and for a terrifying moment, the crew experienced non-existence. In that void, Vostok heard them, the entities. Their whispers were seductive, promising an end to pain, to doubt, to the crushing weight of mortality. All he had to do was let them in, let them use his consciousness as a doorway into reality. No, he growled, clinging to his humanity with desperate strength. Around him, his crew did the same, each fighting their own battle against the lure of oblivion. The moment passed. Reality reasserted itself. And on the view screen, the Amaterasu was coming apart, its death throes tearing at the fabric of space-time itself. The destruction of the Amaterasu was unlike anything Vostok had ever witnessed. The ghost ship didn't simply explode, it unraveled, each layer of its existence peeling away like the pages of a burning book. The blue radiance that had defined it flickered through spectrums visible and invisible, and where the light touched the void of space, reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Multiple dimensional breaches detected. Dr. Reyes announced, her voice strained from the neural overload. The Amaterasu's death is creating ruptures in space-time. Commander, if those breaches expand, can we contain them? Vostok interrupted, watching in horror as holes in reality spread outward from the dying ship like cracks in glass. The inverse field might be able to seal them, but we'd need to extend it far beyond safe parameters. The power requirements alone would burn out our core. Krishnamurti finished over the comm commander. I can give you maybe 30 seconds of extended field projection before we lose all power. After that, we're dead in space. 30 seconds to save reality itself. Vostok had faced long odds before, but never quite like this. Through the view screen, he could see things moving in the breaches, shadowy forms that defied description, entities that had waited eons for a chance to enter their universe. Do it, he ordered. All hands, prepare for emergency power loss. Switch to backup systems where available. The SC White shift drive screamed as it was pushed beyond every safety limit. The inverse field expanded outward, a sphere of negated probability that pushed against the wounds in space-time. Where it touched the breaches, reality began to reassert itself, the holes slowly shrinking. But the entities weren't giving up without a fight. They pressed against the barriers between dimensions, their alien thoughts battering against the minds of everyone aboard the SC White. Vostok gritted his teeth as whispers and languages that predated speech filled his consciousness. On the bridge, Ensign Volkonsky collapsed, blood streaming from his eyes as his mind tried to process concepts human brains were never meant to understand. Dr. Reyes screamed, her neural implants overloading as she tried to shield the crew from the psychic assault. One by one, crew members fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the weight of infinite hunger pressing against their thoughts. Only Chaplain O'Sullivan remained standing beside Vostok, and when the commander looked at him in surprise, the chaplain smiled grimly. Faith, Commander. Sometimes it's the only shield against the darkness. Through the chaos, a familiar voice echoed across the bridge, not through the comm systems, but directly into their minds. It was Captain Nakamura, or what remained of her consciousness as her ship died around her. Commander Vostok. The entities are using our life force as a bridge. Every member of my crew who still exists in any form is being used as an anchor point. You have to sever the connection completely. How? Vostok asked aloud, not caring how mad it looked to speak to empty air. The same way you say goodbye to any fallen comrade. Remember us as we were. Hold our humanity in your thoughts. The entities can mimic our forms, our voices, but they can't understand what made us human. They can't comprehend sacrifice, love, the bonds that tie us together across the void. Use that against them. Understanding dawned. Vostok activated the ship-wide comm, his voice carrying to every corner of the SC White. All hands, this is the commander. I want you to think about the crew of the Amaterasu. Not as the horrors they became, but as the people they were. Remember their names, their faces, their dreams. They were explorers, scientists, dreamers who dared to push the boundaries of human achievement. They were us. It seemed like such a simple thing, almost childishly naive in the face of cosmic horror. But as the crew of the SC White began to focus their thoughts on the humanity of their lost comrades, something changed. The psychic pressure lessened. The whispers of the entities became confused, frustrated. It's working. Dr. Reyes gasped, her implants stabilizing. The entities can't understand. They're beings of pure hunger, pure need. The concept of voluntary sacrifice, of choosing death over corruption, it's antithetical to their very existence. Around the dying Amaterasu, the dimensional breaches began to close more rapidly. The entities retreated, their shadowy forms dissolving as they were forced back into the spaces between realities. But in their retreat, they left something behind. "Commander," Okonkwo said softly, "I'm detecting escape pods. Real ones this time. Life signs, they're faint, but they're human. Purely human." Through the view screen, they could see them, a handful of escape pods ejected from the Amaterasu in its final moments. The inverse field had done more than destroy the ghost ship. It had, somehow, separated the human essence from the eldritch horror, giving a few souls one last chance at freedom. "How many?" Vostok asked, hardly daring to hope. 7 pods, sir. 7 out of 73. 7 survivors out of an entire crew. It was a tragedy, but also a miracle. 7 souls pulled back from an eternity of torment. "Retrieve those pods," Vostok ordered. "Carefully. Full quarantine protocols until we're sure they're truly free of influence." As the SC White moved to collect the survivors, the last of the Amaterasu disappeared into quantum foam. Where the ghost ship had been, only empty space remained, though Vostok suspected that spot would be avoided by spacers for generations to come. "Power core breach imminent." Krishnamurti's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm shutting down the inverse field now." The modified shift drive powered down with a dying whine, and suddenly the SC White was dark except for emergency lighting. They drifted in space, wounded but alive, as the last echoes of the battle faded into silence. In the medical bay of the SC White, the 7 survivors of the Amaterasu lay in isolation chambers, their vital signs monitored by every sensor the ship could spare on emergency power. Dr. Chinmiriam, the chief medical officer, moved between the chambers with the careful precision of someone handling the most delicate of miracles. "Their cellular structure shows signs of temporal displacement," she reported to Vostok, who stood watching through the transparent aluminum barriers. "It's as if different parts of their bodies aged at different rates. But they're stabilizing. Whatever hold those entities had on them, it's been broken." One of the survivors, a young engineer named Kenji Sato according to his medical files, stirred in his chamber. His eyes opened slowly, and when they focused on Vostok, they were filled with such profound relief that the commander had to look away. "Is it real?" Sato whispered, his voice hoarse from 7 years of screaming across dimensions. "Are we really back?" "You're back," Vostok confirmed, placing his hand against the barrier. "You're safe now." Sato began to weep, great heaving sobs that seemed to come from the depths of his soul. In the other chambers, more survivors were awakening, each confronting the reality of their salvation with a mixture of joy and disbelief. On the bridge, repairs were underway as Krishnamurti's team worked to restore primary power. The SC White hung dead in space, her shift drive completely burned out, but her crew was alive and reality itself remained intact. It was, by any measure, a victory. "Commander," Okonkwo called out, working at one of the few functional stations. "I'm receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They detected the gravitational anomalies from the battle. They want a full report." Vostok almost laughed. How did one write a report about fighting the hungry darkness between realities? How did one explain that humanity's greatest achievement in propulsion technology had accidentally opened a door that should have remained forever closed? "Tell them we engaged and destroyed a hostile anomaly," he said finally. "Full report to follow once we're rescued." "And Lieutenant?" "Recommend immediate cessation of all Blueshift drive research until we can understand what happened here." Dr. Ixchel Reyes approached, her neural implants dim but functional. "Commander, I've been analyzing the data from the battle. The inverse harmonic field we created, it's given us invaluable information about the nature of space-time. We could develop defenses, ways to detect and seal dimensional breaches before they become threats." "At what cost?" Vostok asked. "We barely survived this encounter, and that was with luck and desperation on our side. Some doors are better left closed, Doctor. But sir, the scientific implications. I watched Captain Nakamura, one of our finest officers, turned into a puppet for creatures older than time itself. I watched her crew suffer for 7 years in a hell we can't even comprehend. That's the only implication that matters. Chaplain O'Sullivan joined them, his weathered face showing the strain of the past hours. The survivors are asking for you, Commander. They want to thank the person who ended their nightmare. Vostok nodded slowly. It was his duty, though he wondered what words could possibly suffice. As he made his way back to the medical bay, he thought about the choices that had led them here, humanity's endless drive to explore, to push boundaries, to reach for the impossible. That drive had taken them to the stars, but it had also led the Amaterasu into horror beyond imagination. Where was the line between brave exploration and dangerous hubris? When did the pursuit of knowledge become a threat to existence itself? In the medical bay, the 7 survivors were sitting up in their chambers, alert and aware. When Vostok entered, they. Can you create real-life a HFY Galaxy science fiction story compelling third-person story based on the title I provide? The story should follow the structure outlined below. Battle of the Twin Shifts, the SC White and Amaterasu's Blueshift clash in orbit, HFY Audiobooks. The story should be suspenseful, emotional, and intriguing. Use third-person narration to describe the actions and feelings of various characters. Use unique and notable names for each character. Do not reuse any names across stories, and avoid using the same common American names. Each story should feature fresh, memorable names. The story should consist of 7 parts, each part containing approximately 895 words, and the entire story should be written in paragraphs. Start the story with an engaging hook that compels the reader to continue. Introduce key characters, setting, and hint at the conflict. Conclude with a satisfying yet emotional ending in Part 7. Ensure the story resolves but leaves readers with a sense of mystery or sadness.